Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are once again back in the car, which means we have seen yet another new movie. Tonight's movie was actually an early access screening of none other than next week's biggest film, Fly Me to the Moon, starring Channing Tatum and Scarlet Johansson. We are going to be doing a non-spoiler review this week just because the film hasn't technically come out, but we figured that you guys would like to have kind of a quick impression if you were planning on going or not. And then next week we'll release all of our spoilers and details and stuff like that if you're interested in that. Otherwise, we're going to move on ahead. We're going to do a 1 to 10. We're going to talk a couple of details, let you know our recommendation on whether or not to watch it in the theaters or not, and then next week will be our spoilers and the rest of all that fun jazz. So without further ado, DJ, since you are finally back in the car after a 2-week absence, 1 to 10.
9.
Okay. I would give this film a solid 8.5. It's a solid film. It's got great cinematography. The humor's on point, dialogue's good, acting is good. It's just one of those things where, for a couple of reasons, it doesn't quite hit that 9 for me. But it is a very solid film, very enjoyable, very well done. Probably one of the better films that Apple's put out in the last year.
Yeah. My biggest issue with it was actually some of the cutting. It's there's some weird mixes of scenes. Some make perfect sense. There's a lot of scenes in this movie where they switch from like something that's like kind of somber or to something joyful. There's a lot of mood switching, which works really well.
Yeah.
There's a few moments, and it's important moments of the film, where when it cuts a little jarringly into something that doesn't quite fit what's going on, or you lose a little bit of where you are in the film. Time or events get lapsed a little bit together a few moments, and it takes a few moments for you to get back into it. You kind of get thrown out, and then you're like, it's like you're reading a book and you lose your place on the page. Yes. And you're like, oh crap, what page was I on? Shoot. Oh, there we go, we're good. And then you're fine again. But in a film that's a little jarring, and it does it a few times, that was really the one thing that hurt for me the most out of all of it. In a film, you can't do that. I get lost. I'm getting lost because you're doing too much jumping. Mm-hmm. Slow down a little bit. That was a big one. Other than that, it's the acting is so good. The leads are really good. Another issue I did run into a little bit is there's a lot of forced situations, if you know what I mean. Where like the plot contrived moments. This is happening because the plot says so, not because it makes sense to happen. There's a few of those as well, especially in some really big scenes. And it's kind of done to be lighthearted and enjoyable, kind of like a fun twist on the moon landing story by showing what could have happened, things that we wouldn't really even have thought of focusing on before. And especially for the moon landing, which has been done to death. This is a very fun take on it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very fun take. There's a lot of really interesting things that they've put into it. It seems like they actually took the time to really make sure that they got little details and things like that most people probably gloss over. They do kind of play fun at some of the conspiracy theories and stuff like that, which was fun. Probably one of the big downsides, besides the cutting, would be, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would say that it's some of the scenes in the film come off as a little bit sappy, like you know, like it's the sticky ooey gooey super sweet honey moments kind of thing, and they work for a lot of films, but sometimes in this film they felt just a little slightly bit forced.
Yes, that's what I mean. They feel like important character moments, especially between the leads, feel forced at times. It feels like plot says you two do thing, therefore you two do thing. And it's like, that doesn't make sense for what's already happening with these characters.
Right, and it's only going to take about a 1.5 points off of the film for me, just because, like, we watch a lot of movies and we look for these kind of things. So for us, I think it's a little worse than most people would see. So when we're, like, drilling to this...
Well, when you don't have... And the thing is this isn't even nitpicky. It's a little on the nose. Like, it happens a lot in the film, and so those are the moments that just detract a little bit for me. The film is amazing other than that. The problem is it happens often enough that you just kind of that's what makes it worse for me. I'm really into it, and then it pulls me out.
Yeah.
And I'm really into it, then it pulls me out. And I'm really into it. It's like, stop it. Just let me enjoy this.
Right.
Just let me enjoy the film. The film won't let me enjoy it because it keeps pulling me out of it. But it's not bad enough to, like, kill it. It's just, that's why I give it a 9. Because it's like, it's a little obnoxious, but, I mean, it's not to the point where it spoils the film.
Yeah.
It spoils the immersion into the film. But this film also doesn't really require immersion like you would in some other films.
Well, no, and it's just a fun movie. Like, the thing is that you can kind of give it a little bit of a pass because it is just kind of a fun, goofy,
it's flippant.
movie. It's flippant. And it does that very well. And the thing is that it does flippant even better than something like Ghosted. Ghosted was good at being flippant. It was just bad because the people were psychopaths. This one at least handles kind of the flippant humor pretty well. And
it's actually got a little bit of that Mel Brooks like flippant humor without the fourth wall breaking or the like hard comedy. It's that flippant, subtle humor that's situational. That's often in that kind of a parody film.
Yeah.
But those things are doing it to itself, and so you don't have to take it as seriously. Yeah. If this was a serious film, one that was maybe like a heavier action film or a thriller, those kind of moments would kill the film for me because the immersion is important in those kind of films. This one, it's not as important to me, and it doesn't feel as necessary, so it doesn't hurt the film as bad. Which is part of the reason I give it a 9 rather than 8.5, is because for me, that just doesn't... This isn't the type of film that needs that. But it does a really good job of portraying the moon landing in the back, which has been done. I mean, movies like Hidden Figures has done this. Right. There was one done, I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s, that was talking about like the engineer team that was involved. There's a lot of films that have gone to the background, but this one kind of puts the whole picture together with a sense of humor. Yeah. Which is a unique take on it. I think I've seen like 8 movies now about the Apollo landing, and this doesn't feel like a retread. Right, and that's impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive. So I think that if we keep going into it, we're going to end up going into spoiler territory. So overall, I say that this is definitely one of the films that you should see in theaters, just because there are quite a few sound moments that are just very, very impressive that they've put into the film. But also just having the crowd reaction, stuff like that. People catch on things that you don't necessarily, and then when the crowd kind of gets into it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm starting to see it, and it starts becoming more enjoyable. So I think that there's a big benefit to seeing it in the movies. So I recommend to see this in the theaters. If you don't see it in theaters, you can wait until it comes out on Apple Plus or other streaming services. Granted, I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying Apple Plus just for a movie. So... That's the issue with like Apple movies, is that a lot of them just end up on Apple Plus, or they get very expensive on other streaming platforms.
Yeah. Well, I would say this one alone would be worth a theater watch because of the scope. It's about NASA launches, and there's some scenes that benefit. The music and sound are always good and stuff in a theater, but one of the things that would amaze me in this film, for like a small comedy-like film, is the scope of the shots that they took.
Yes,
there are some shots, because I mean it's a NASA launch. You got like the rockets, and you've got the NASA building and stuff, which is the tallest. I think it is even still today the tallest single-story building in America, at least, probably the world. It is I've been up to it up close. It is an amazing thing to see on the inside. It's cool, and the theater does it justice. Having actually been to these places and seeing these buildings and where they built these things in person, it felt like being there on the big screen. I don't think you get that at home, and I think that would be worthy alone, let alone just that it's a really good film.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that this film, they did such a great job with a lot of the CGI and a lot of the background shots and things like that, that it's actually a joy to watch, which is, I think, important to point out, because sometimes Apple skimps on their CGI
special effects.
Well, I mean, Argyle was awful with CGI. This one, actually, the CGI was done very, very well.
That's true.
So
I will say that one of the things I did notice when we were looking at the credits is they definitely gave a lot more either a budget or something to special effects, because there was a ton of people on it.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference. Whatever they did, they either gave it more money or they changed teams or something, because it is an impressive. Granted, it's more realism in this than things like Argyle and stuff I've had in the past, but it doesn't matter. I've seen plenty of films fake realism with CGI, and this film does a good job of integration and special effects, and uses a lot of practical effects to great degree.
Yeah.
But I will say, there are some scenes, we'll get into spoilers when we talk about spoiler review next, that I have to talk about because there's some cool things there. That's all I got.
Anyway, so there you go. Recommend watching this movie in theaters. Fly Me to the Moon, very enjoyable film. Speaking of things that are enjoyable, I can't necessarily say that that's at the channel, but we try our best. We watch old movies, we watch good movies, we watch bad movies, we watch any kind of movies, and we like to talk about movies in general. We are film nerds, so if you are a film nerd, join our growing community. We will really need you desperately. Please. Otherwise, we desperately need your comments below. Let us know what you thought. Give us a like. Let us know your thoughts about Fly Me to the Moon, and what movie are you looking forward to as we are now full swing into summer blockbuster season. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thank you for watching.